Thank you so much, Jen,
Hello,
for this
hello.
lovely introduction.
You are welcome and you too enjoy. I look forward to hearing this conversation.
Yeah, thank you so much, and
Thanks.
thank you for the introduction.
Hi, Josh.
Hey, Mostafa, how's you doing?
All good. What about you?
I am doing pretty good myself. It's been a good day so far. So I'm super excited to be able to be on this panel and have this discussion. And yeah, super excited just for everything that Vue.js Nation is kind of putting on. I love it.
Awesome. Me too. Yeah, it's been great. Like a lot of interesting talks. And everybody out there, welcome to what I know is going to be a very super insightful and interesting panel. If you have any questions about Laravel, about Vue.js, about how to use both together, leave it in the chat. We'll pick it up from there. And Josh Cirre here, and I know how to pronounce your name thanks to the tweet that you have pinned on your X profile. So yeah, leave it in the chat. We'll pick it up from there. And Josh here has some interesting insights about not only Vue.js, about the entire JavaScript ecosystem. You can see it even on his Twitter profile that he's saying from JavaScript to Laravel. So it's like he's adopting Laravel for everything. We're going to find out today. And cool. So ready to get started?
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready. Let's do it.
Awesome. So I'm going to show the first question that we have in here. What are your thoughts on using Livewire versus Inertia?
Yeah, it's funny because I think inertia, obviously, for those who don't know, is the glue that kind of binds a Laravel backend with a Vue front end. And of course, you can also use things like React or Svelte on the front end as well. But inertia and Livewire are probably two different ways of solving a similar problem, where a Livewire doesn't reach for a templating language. It uses Blade, Laravel's templated language, out of the box. And it uses kind of like Ajax requests to talk to the server. And the funny thing is, Caleb Porzio, the creator of Livewire, was and still is very much like a Vue fan, in the sense that a lot of the initiatives, the directives, and just how you write Livewire feel very Vue-like. In fact, the first Laravel app that I wrote was in Vue with Inertia, and then the second one was within Livewire. And a lot of it felt very similar. You're just kind of doing more things on the server versus the client. So my thoughts on using Livewire versus Inertia is kind of really comes down to what your needs are. Especially, you can still use Vue within Livewire. There's people who do, because you can use Vue just strictly on a client and not necessarily paired with Inertia. You could just use it for interactions instead of some other, JavaScript library. I know there's people who use like Petite Vue or even Vue itself within Livewire. But I think it all comes down to like your personal preference. Obviously, this is Vue.js Nation, so you love Vue, and then you're probably going to want to use Inertia because Vue is perfect for that. It's kind of everything that you might want, and it's only going to consistently get better within the story for Laravel, and that's what I'm really excited about as well. So yeah, Livewire lets you kind of write PHP, and then Inertia lets you write Vue.
Awesome. That's a great answer. And I've seen a video of yours. By the way, this guy here has a great channel and he creates a lot of
Well,
cool
thank you.
videos. So yeah, check it out. So I've seen a video that you were talking about the same topic, and you were saying that Livewire allows you to follow the MVC model, and you can have everything done in one place instead of going or switching between the front end tool that you're using and the backend. So that was an interesting point of view. For me, I started learning like the first thing. I started learning PHP. I'm sure that you might know my older brother, Mohammed Saeed. Yeah, so he told me learn a little bit of PHP and then go learn Laravel. Like, don't go deep into PHP, just little bit, and then go learn Laravel. So I started with Laravel, and then I not switched, like I discovered Vue.js, and I discovered how easy you can do JavaScript and how easy you can implement great stuff with so little effort. So I started mixing both, and then Inertia came out, and it was great. Like, it was really cool. So for me, for someone who loves Vue, like you said, most of us at Vue.js Nation loves Vue. I prefer using Inertia.js over Livewire, but of
Yeah.
course, it's so interesting. Cool.
Yeah.
So before we go, yeah,
Well, I was just going to say also with that, I think you kind of have this idea of when you're writing Vue, adopting Laravel with inertia becomes very, very easy because now you have this idea of everything that is being served up to your client is just writing Vue, and everything that you're doing on the back end is writing, PHP or Laravel. And I was the same way as you, Mostafa, where I didn't know I didn't know PHP. I still don't really believe I know PHP too well. I just know Laravel really well, and it helps me know PHP. But also on the topic of this, of like how Livewire, specifically with Livewire Volt, for those who don't know, it's kind of like a single file component where you basically have your Vue and your server logic all in one file. I think we're going to be seeing some interesting things in Laracon EU that might help push that Vue and inertia story forward even more.
nice. Hey, that's exciting. Looking forward to that.
Yeah,
So,
me too. Me too.
yeah. So, cool. I have another question that can be related to the comparison of things. So let's have a look at that one. When do you choose Vue over Alpine.js in Laravel?
Yeah. Again, I think it comes down to probably the end goal of the project, because I'm going to be choosing Vue with inertia, where Alpine.js is probably going to be paired more with like a Livewire application. And I kind of see it more as how client side heavy is my application going to be, in the sense of for us at Laravel, when the team decided to build the couple of products that we're pushing out, mostly Cloud and Nightwatch, those are very heavy intensive client side applications. And while we're using React for those would be perfect instances for when I would personally choose Vue and inertia over Alpine.js, because it allows me to do anything that I want to do in Vue, import any Vue package, import any Vue library, and be ready to go, where I don't have to think about compatibility. I don't have to think about how I'm getting information from the server to the client. Since inertia already takes care of that, I just have to write Vue on the front end. And so that way I don't have to worry about when I'm accidentally leaking information, or maybe like I'm doing too many server side interactions. It makes it a lot easier because that separation of server to client is a lot more cleaner and a lot more simple. It's something that I'm always a huge fan of, is basically like choosing the right tool for the job. And I think when you choose Vue over something like Alpine.js, is you're probably reaching for a specific package, or maybe like a specific maybe you just already have built out 90% of it in another application. You're just easily porting it over to Vue with inertia and Laravel, or you're wanting those an easier way to do client side snappiness, because I think inertia gives you that SPA kind of feel, especially with the features of inertia 2, where we can defer specific props when we're loading them on the front end, or we can even have prefetching within Vue links, and the most recent change of being able to have specific JavaScript not load until you actually use it. And that's what I think makes inertia and Vue so powerful within Laravel.
Yeah, I agree. I couldn't agree more. So before we continue with the questions, I have a question of mine. Can you tell me a little bit about Laravel? What is Laravel? And basically, why would a Vue.js developer who has full stack frameworks to do the server side of things, like Nuxt, for example, why would I use Laravel? Like, what is the benefit? What will I gain?
Yeah. Well, first off, I want to say that Laravel wouldn't necessarily, like, Laravel could still be used fantastically with something like Nux. So it's not one of the things I always like to try to say is it's never going to be oh, you have to use Laravel and never use Nuxt again. Or you have to use Laravel and never use your specific flavor of Vue with your specific flavor of backend. You don't really have to do that. Laravel can be adopted incrementally, which is something that I love. There's even community packages put out that are specific adoptions within Laravel and a Nuxt application, where you kind of have these helper functions that I don't remember the specific community contributor for those off the top of my head, but there is a Nuxt version of what's called Laravel Breeze, which is a authentication kind of scaffolding or starter kit. And there's so many cool things that the community has done within Nux and Laravel, and you kind of get the best of both worlds. You get the snappiness and all the functionality of a Nux application. You get the packages and the modules of a Nux application. Modules in Nux, as a side note, are some of my favorite things. Like I hope more of the development community as a whole brings that kind of capability and compatibilities within their own flavors of JavaScript. But I think when you would reach for Laravel, and what Laravel is basically a batteries included full stack framework in PHP. And I think the strength of Laravel comes from, one, everything that Laravel brings is a first party application. So things like authentication, whether that's social authentication or two-factor authentication, everything that is kind of baked in when it comes to that. We have preferences and opinions while you still have flexibility within the framework. And so whether it's authentication or queues, how you talk to a database, all of it is first party. So you know that if you wanted to switch up and you're on developing locally in a SQLite database, but when you push to production, you're going to be in a Postgres database, and now you have to think about, okay, now where are my queues living and all this. It's really simple in Laravel because it's just kind of changing a development environment flag and saying, okay, I just want to use Postgres now. And I think that's really the benefit of what Laravel brings is, while Nuxt is great, you kind of have to pick and choose what you want on the back end. And if that's what you prefer, that's great. But if you don't necessarily want to do a hosted queue service, then maybe you want to use Laravel's queues itself. And maybe that's the only thing you use Laravel for if you have a Nuxt app. I know a lot of teams and folks who have incrementally adopted Laravel by first just saying, okay, I want Laravel to run my queues and jobs. And that's the only thing it touches. And I, send an API request and I get stuff back after the queue's finished. And then I push it to my database and I'm not even connecting to my database via Laravel. That's perfect. But I think it's also great to be able to know if you wanted to have Laravel run everything on the back end, from authentication to queues to mailing. All of that can be done and is really fairly simple. I always say, even if you don't know PHP, it's fairly easy to get up and running.
Yeah.
And it's definitely one of the things that's made me move from kind of more a serverless JavaScript approach, in the sense that I was using a lot of services for my backends. And then I started building in Laravel with Vue and Inertia and everything else, and I haven't looked back.
Yeah, I mean that's a great and powerful duo. Both of those tools are achieving a lot together, whether it's just Vue or Nuxt. So it's just amazing, and it's amazing how fast, like you just mentioned, how fast you get started with very little knowledge. You can just hit some commands, and those commands is going to scaffold an application for you with the database setup, with authentication system, with everything. Like, you have a live application that you would spend hours trying to build and put the pieces together. Everything is put together for you, and here you go. You have your application, work on the logic, and that's it. And like you mentioned, you don't have to pick whether to use Laravel or something else. Laravel is always there with all of the amazing features, and you can just use it for one thing. So that's great. I
Exactly.
know a lot of people, like we have a course Daniel Kelly worked on Vue School, and it's using Nuxt on the front end, communicating with Laravel API with
Oh, okay.
authentication and
Awesome.
everything. So yeah,
I didn't
that
know
that
that. I'll
that
have to
was
look at that.
super. Yeah, and also I'm working on another course now for inertia and how easy it is for
Mm.
front end developers to just hit the command, get the application, understand what is it all about, and I'm not even explaining a single line in PHP. Everything is super smooth and easy. So yeah, that's the beauty of Laravel, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, just that the ability to get from one command up and running is incredible to me. Like that's really one of the reasons why I stuck with Laravel after trying a bunch of different batteries included full stack frameworks. It was like, oh, I
Yeah,
have this one command and I have a dashboard and I can say if my user is logged in, I want to show them this. You would be surprised that even with all the great tools that and modules that Nuxt provides, for example, you can do that, but it's still fairly complicated if you want to do something as simple as if my logged in user is actually logged in, show them this kind of thing. It becomes a
yeah,
little bit more trickier when you're talking to two services at a time, maybe your authentication service and your and also your database service, for example. And yeah,
yeah.
and at Laracon EU, there's going to be some updates on what the what the future of starter kits look like in the Laravel and Vue ecosystem as well with Inertia, and I'm really excited for those.
Ah, now I'm excited because I thought that it's already feature complete. Like the whole thing is just amazing. So more
It is, but
updates. Sign me in.
we can be better. We can do more.
Yeah, I bet you can. Yeah,
Yeah.
your team is awesome.
Yeah, Tony Leah, who recently joined Laravel, specifically helping to work on open source projects. He was the founder of Dev Dojo, huge Vue fan, huge. He kind of is just a huge Laravel fan, and is has been building Laravel for longer than I've even known about Laravel. But he's doing some fantastic work on those starter kits. I'm really excited for everyone to see him.
Yeah, super excited as well. Cool. So jumping to another topic, we have another question here. Does Laravel has an easy way of doing real-time data with a Vue app?
It does, especially if you're using Inertia. I mean, I can't talk too much about what that would look like in a kind of more traditional Vue SPA, while it still can be done. The cool part is Laravel has kind of first-party adapters for real-time WebSocket connections. So whether you're using Pusher or Laravel's own feature complete Reverb, which is basically a
Mm-hmm.
socket real-time connection server where you can easily say, okay, after a specific queue is done, I want to send a notification to something, and I'm listening to that same thing. And so within Inertia, it's as simple as it's as simple as basically on a single page or in a single component saying when that specific event has been sent, when that real-time dispatched event has been sent, then I want to do something with it. And so real-time data becomes incredibly popular, and you don't have to, while Inertia still has a great story specifically within Vue for polling, where you can kind of do like a
Yeah,
fake real-time, I guess, and say
yeah,
every 5 seconds I'm checking for new information. The ability to set up Reverb or whatever else you prefer within Laravel and kind of consume that in a Vue front end with Inertia is really easy, but also just really powerful too. I am not a developer on the cloud team for Laravel Cloud, but the Laravel Cloud team is really heavily using real-time data within their application, and it's using Reverb. And while that it's using React on the front end, it's still the same implementation that you would use for Vue within Laravel.
yeah. Yeah, that sounds interesting. I mean, I haven't tried Reverb yet, but it looks so cool. Even from the homepage, it looks so cool. And also, we have another course on Reverb. Daniel Kelly did, and it felt so smooth. Looking at videos and everything just felt so smooth. Like you said, the first party tooling that Laravel offers is just so tempting to try out.
Oh yeah, it makes things so much fun when you can look at the docs and it's all on one website. That's my personal pet peeve.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Having everything in one place.
Yep.
Cool. So the next question, how do you handle validation across Vue.js application and Laravel?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's this package called precognition. It was created by Tim McDonald on the Laravel team, and Laravel precognition basically is the real-time data validation between Laravel and Inertia. Again, another incredible first-party package that you could probably do all of this by hand, but why would you when we could do it for you, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But Laravel precognition is really incredible. I haven't gotten to use it as much as I would like, but basically, you can say within Vue and Inertia, basically after installing an npm package. In your form component within Inertia, and you can also do this within a Vue SPA as well, still use precognition to get those real-time data validation. But you can basically say when this specific form is going to be posted on that submit method, you can get, or before that submit method even happens, you can get those validation back from the server. So not only do you now have client-side validation within your Vue application, but you also have all the wonder. If you haven't looked at what Laravel has in terms of validation, I can't remember the exact number off the top of my head, but there's like over 150 ways to validate
Wow.
something in Laravel, in the
Yeah.
sense that you can be like, okay, this is a string, but it's a minimum of 2 characters and a maximum of 333, and it has to be like these specific characters, and you can do even regex in your validation thing, or you can even say, is this a valid domain? All of these simple validation helpers that Laravel gives you out of the box. Now
Yeah.
you can use those with your Vue and your Level app. So yes, Laravel does handle form validation, specifically within Inertia, but precognition that I talked about also works within an SPA as well. And all of the Inertia stuff is really, the magic comes down to Inertia's form helper, which basically wraps up everything super nicely. I haven't personally used any form package within Vue outside of Inertia, but if you're used to kind of like having a form package helper where you're just like, hey, here's my name, here's my email, and this is where I want it to post to, that's exactly what Inertia provides, and it makes those validations super easy.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds tempting to try out. I mean, it's amazing how all of these validation rules are out of the box. It's not something that you grab extra. It's just you use it and it's right there for you to use and without doing anything extra. So it's really cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. So the next thing I think is going to be interesting because TypeScript. So what are your thoughts on using TypeScript with Vue and Laravel?
Yeah. I am not a TypeScript master by any means, but I've learned TypeScript through using Laravel's TypeScript packages within Vue and Laravel. So I think the TypeScript story is only going to get better. I believe the new starter kits, don't quote me on this because I don't know if it's 100% true, but I believe the new starter kits are using TypeScript completely for both Vue and React. But I think using TypeScript within Vue and Laravel gives you just more flexibility, and also kind of makes the jump from server to front end even more powerful and even more, I don't know, friendly, if that's a good way of putting
Yeah.
it as well. I know that there's a specific Laravel package called Laravel Spotsy. Spotsy is a kind of an agency that has so many Laravel packages that they just create and build and give away for free. Open source packages, and one of them is called Laravel Data, I believe. And basically it allows you to create types for all of your back-end models, and then it just makes working with Laravel and TypeScript within Vue just so much cleaner.
So does it share, like, I'll jump to the next question because it's related. Does it share the types between Laravel and Vue? So the question is, what's your preferred way to share types between Laravel and Vue? So what you just mentioned, does it already share the, let's say, the type that you defined on the server side? Does it share it automatically with the Vue application using Laravel?
Yeah. So this is probably answering not my preferred way, just because I don't use types as much as I should. I probably should use them more. But yes, so the Laravel data packages by Spotsy, and I believe this is probably the most used one. There's probably other ones that I'm forgetting as well. But basically, it allows you to set a specific PHP object in your backend that extends this data a class that allows you to say, okay, this specific this specific model has a string that is a title, and this specific model has a string that is an artist, and then those specific types automatically get generated to be able to be consumed on the front end. And so that way you're not worrying about you're not worrying about having to write those by hand. You only configure them once in your backend, and then because PHP does have types itself, you're kind of having those types being shared from the backend to the front end within Vue.
Nice. So the Vue application will know what to expect, what data it's expecting from Laravel by default, since you already defined that in Laravel.
Exactly. Yeah. And I don't know if that's doable within like a Vue SPA or even Nux, but I know within Inertia that that specific package does work great with Inertia.
Nice. Yeah. Well, in Next, usually in Next, you don't write TypeScript a lot unless you're writing Vue components. Then you would like to write TypeScript for Vue components. But Next already, like Nitro, which is the server-side engine, is already like trying its best to set the component expectations of what data is coming from the request that you're requesting. So it also shares the types somehow, but it doesn't also always work. So you know what I mean? Like it does its best to do that by default, so you don't have to manually type your data, but as much as possible, it tries to generate the type that you're expecting so that your component knows what data it's getting from the server side. So yeah, it works in Nuxt, but sometimes it just needs a little more work to do.
Yeah.
Cool. So I have another question here. What are the key performance? Let me show that. Sorry. What are the key performance bottlenecks when using Vue.js with Laravel, and how we can optimize them? That's a good one.
Yeah, that is a great question. And I think really it comes down to what the key performance bottlenecks would be when using Vue.js without Laravel. Because I think with Inertia, a lot of times it's easy to think of Inertia and Vue together kind of being this own crazy package where it's just a different flavor of Vue, when really it's not. It's just serving up a Vue, rendered DOM within your Laravel application. I think it becomes so much more important to think through, okay, what performance optimizations do I need to make sure that I account for when I'm writing this Vue application, regardless of how my application is being served up. And I think Laravel helps with that because probably just from like a developer experience kind of way, where now you aren't necessarily having this in direct, okay, I'm going to make this API call and do this to make sure I get the data that I need. Working with Inertia makes it a little bit easier, because now you can say, when I serve up this particular page, I'm already sending across the data that I need and consuming it on the front end that way. And I think the biggest performance bottlenecks to kind of think through is what kind of data are you serving to the page, how much data, as well as what kind of data are you requesting or submitting from the page within your Inertia app. Because one of the biggest things is sometimes you send more information than you actually need. While Inertia is that glue that doesn't allow you to have to write an API, you still can be like, okay, I'm sending maybe a list of all my users. Well, maybe you don't necessarily need their hashed password, and you don't necessarily need whatever 8 other table columns that are in your database. You just need maybe their name, ID, and email. And Laravel allows you to, easily only send that information. Especially within Laravel's JSON resources, which is great to kind of say, anytime I serve this to my Inertia application, I only want to send this information. I think that's usually where performance bottlenecks happen for the most part within any SPA app. Is usually you're trying to maybe filter through more information than you actually need, when really you only need 1 or 2 columns.
Yeah. So basically, it doesn't impact performance in any bad way. Like using Laravel with Vue.js, it doesn't impact performance. It depends on what data you're expecting. Are you sending back only the data that you need, or are you sending back everything? Like you give the user everything, so you'd have to wait for all of this data to load. But for performance problems, I don't think there is a specific performance problem, because it just works.
Yep,
Cool.
exactly. It just works, and it's not necessarily the you're serving up a Vue application that already has the connection made to your Laravel backend, and not necessarily a Laravel application that Vue.js is living on. I think that it helps to know that there's nothing that Laravel is doing within Inertia that's going to hinder performance when it comes to actually rendering your Vue application.
Yeah, and PHP is fast. I mean, it's not
very
slow as as some people might think, but it is super fast now, and it has developed and improved so much since years ago. So cool, awesome. So I have here another question. Do you have UI libraries recommendation for Inertia, Vue, or React?
Yeah, I think my personal preference is I like things that give me still flexibility in how I customize something, while also just giving me everything that I want if I don't have to customize it too. And I think really this is not going to be maybe shocking to most people. I think ShadCN is probably like the UI recommendation for anything Vue or React. There's a Vue port. I think there's even a Svelte port that are both community kind of ports. And that is what the new starter kits within Laravel will use, as well as ShadCN for both Vue and React.
Oh, nice. That's cool to know. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's going to be awesome. So you just run the command to install and start with the starter kit, and it will use ShadCN by default. Am I correct?
By default, you're correct.
Nice. Cool. That's super
and
cool.
it's cool. Even the ShadCN React one has a how to install this with Laravel currently on its current site. So I think the creator of ShadCN, his name's ShadCN on Twitter/X. He's a Laravel fan as well.
Yeah, that's super cool. I'm now checking if there is also a Laravel guide, and there is on ShadCN Vue. So this is super cool as well. Yeah.
I didn't look at the Vue one yet. That's awesome. I love it.
Yeah, super cool. Okay, so next question. What's your approach to error handling between Vue and Laravel?
Approach to error handling. I think this probably pretty comes into the precognition stuff. So especially if you're doing any kind of form validation and that's usually where most of your errors are probably going to come from.
Yeah.
Other than that, you're probably going to reach for Laravel gives you the ability to have a session data, and that's really where a lot of your errors are probably going to live. Errors that you want to actually display on the front end, and so. I think uh, I forget exactly how to do it within inertia, but there's basically a way to say within your PHP, when something happens, if I have any kind of error, I want to return back and display a particular message, and then you basically just can that's automatically passed to your Vue front end, and you can display it how you want. And so I think inertia
Mhm.
specifically gives you a lot of flexibility when it comes to error handling within Vue,
Forms.
because then you don't have to worry about how am I consuming this particular error message, and how do I want to display it. You're just saying, if there's ever an error message on this particular page, this is what I want to show. And so that works great when it comes to, of course, there's already kind of that form validation that you get those errors back. But then there's also that maybe you're running a long time queue on a particular page, and you're pulling the server, or you're doing reverb and listening in real
Yeah.
time. You always want to make sure you're displaying that to your user. So I think the error handling approach, I would default to Laravel's error handling, and then make sure I just display that on the front end whenever possible, whether that's through a session, or just a simple v-if.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, inertia has this use form composable, and it's really impressive. It reads the errors, and it gives you some hooks that you can listen to, or you can react to errors as they come. And yeah, it is super helpful. People out there, check it out. The use form composable is really helpful. So yeah, and there is something that I would like to, I don't know, focus on, even though I don't have a question about, which is queues and jobs. It's a very interesting topic, and the concept and the implementation and everything, it's also built in. Like, you don't grab something additional. I believe you just start working with it, and you just run some commands. You have uh, the database ready for your jobs, and you get started. So, can you please tell us more about queues and jobs? What is it? And yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think queues and jobs are so powerful within Laravel, and really what we would say is the first approach you should reach for whenever you're doing something that is very server intensive. So anything within Laravel can automatically be pushed to a queue, even if you're sending something like email, which most of the time you might be thinking, okay, when I click this button, I want to notify a user. But
Yeah.
most of the time you might be thinking, I don't really need to have that be in the background, right? I can just have it be processed with the server request. But what if hundreds of thousands of people are doing that exact same thing? And so I
Yeah.
think Laravel makes it incredibly simple within queues and jobs to say pretty much any event that you're going to do, should this be queuable? And it's as simple as when you're writing your job, or you're writing maybe a notification, or you're writing a specific event. I just want to automatically push that to a queue. And then you can get even more advanced things like queue and job batching. A lot of I have reached for this personally when I started learning Laravel. Was I needed a way to basically say, I want this one job to run, but then when it completes, I need to grab that information and push it to another job. And I need to do that for hundreds of jobs as I kind of walk through. It was kind of like an AI process of getting information back from the AI, and then like doing with that information for the next question.
Mhm.
And that's where there's so much flexibility and so much power within Laravel's queues and jobs to say, okay, I want to run all of these jobs at once, or I want to run maybe 5 of these jobs at once, or maybe I want to say all of these jobs should run concurrently, and then once they're all finished, then I want to run this next jobs concurrently. And so the flexibility, the options that Laravel gives you is really anything that you might think of for application. I think that's what it comes down to within building for Laravel is a lot of the features and parity features that have been created mostly by Taylor Otwell have all been given because they've been building applications within Laravel for
Yeah.
10 plus years now to say,
Yeah.
okay, here's the things I need. And that's why new features come out in Laravel every week, because here's the things we need to build our products. So here's what's going to happen. And here's the new stuff we can give to our community as well.
Yeah, it's crazy, the new features. Like every single time that I say, okay, Laravel, that's it. You have everything. Like I cannot think of something missing in that. I'm not gonna say first party solutions. I'm gonna say even the ecosystem. The ecosystem is full of everything. And no, there are more updates, more features, more products out there, and most of it we can use even without paying anything. So it is impressive. And for queues, the concept is interesting that it's all done under the hood without delaying anything to the end user. So let's say that the user is, you have some sort of an image optimization service where people upload their images and it gets optimized or something. You don't have to force the user to stay on the page waiting for the image to be uploaded and so on. And like you said, maybe hundreds or thousands of people uploading images at the same time. You can add a queue, prioritize your tasks, and tell your application, okay, if the user is subscribed, give him higher priority than other jobs that are not subscribed. So those people will wait longer, those people will wait less, and everything is happening on the backstage. It is crazy. It's just super powerful.
It really is crazy. I think that's the queues and jobs were really the selling point for me of realizing that there's power within like an actual full backend service and not having to kind of worry about, for me, okay, what limits am I running up against if I'm running this completely in the browser or completely on the maybe like a serverless function or something like that. So I think it's really crazy.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so another question that's related to Daniel Kelly's talk, which is about, yeah, that's the one I think. It's about AI. So can I use Open API? Oh, that's AI. I think I clicked the wrong one. But anyway, can I use Open API with Laravel to document REST APIs for use with a Vue frontend?
Yes, you can. There's probably a bunch of different packages. I don't know one off the top of my head, but I know that there's a ton of resources that have been created to generate REST APIs using Open API within Laravel. And I think they kind of coincide with Laravel's data package as well, like within Spotsy too.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so another related question here. Does Laravel come with any AI libraries for interacting with common LLMs? Like, does it have first-party solutions, or is it the ecosystem?
It does not have first-party solutions just yet. I know that might be something coming down the line, maybe in the future. But there is a fantastic third-party package that I know folks on the Laravel team have been able to play around with as well. But it's created by a guy named TJ Miller. It's called Prism, and it would be one that I would definitely want everyone who's interested in that to check out, especially using Laravel within AIs, because it's basically, I think that's at prism.ecolabs.dev, and it basically gives you the ability to use any LLM that you want and be able to connect to that LLM without having to write any additional code. So you're switching between LLMs maybe, or maybe you just want the best particular one for a given user or different given region or something like that. It basically allows you to simplifies your APIs and how you write your AI code. And usually that AI code's like we said, is probably going to be in a background job anyways. So.
Yeah, nice. Sounds interesting.
It's really
okay. Yeah. The next question: what is a good testing strategy when you use Laravel and Inertia together?
Yeah, I think the testing strategy. So Inertia has its own kind of endpoint tests that you can do within Laravel to kind of say, does it have the particular things on the page? Really within Laravel specifically. So yeah, Inertia on the docs does have like a full page specific to testing. And most of those are going to be specific to endpoint tests. Of course, you can use something like end-to-end tests with Laravel Dusk, or even client-side tests. Those are not going to be specific to Laravel, like you might be familiar with, like within Jest or something like that.
Mhm.
But Laravel kind of has two versions of testing currently. It would be Pest PHP, written by
Mhm.
Nuno Maduro and team, and then there's also PHP Unit, which is kind of more of a class-based testing strategy. So a
Uh-huh.
lot of the tests that you're going to be doing within Inertia for things like endpoints for that Inertia application, those Inertia pages, are going to be done within Laravel, but then also you can write tests for your actual backend logic as well.
Uh-huh. Okay. Cool. Okay. So next question. Server-side rendering with Inertia.js, server-side rendering of Vue app with Laravel. I think it's versus, I think. Yeah.
Versus maybe.
Comparing. Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think it kind of comes down to what you need, kind of thing. I think within server-side rendering within Inertia.js, it's uh, there's not going to be too much maybe downsides within a server-side rendering of a Vue application. You might lose a little bit of like snappiness in terms of like how it feels in the application. I think it just kind of depends on what your personal preferences are on connecting to your Laravel application. Maybe you want to connect via an API, or you want to maybe like you're using a Vue app with Laravel, a traditional classic Vue app, because you have a mobile application. You don't want to kind of write two APIs. That's
Mhm.
probably a great opportunity for using a Vue app with Laravel versus Inertia, where Inertia you don't have to write the first API because it's just served with Laravel and Inertia. But then if you had a mobile app, you would have to write a second
Yeah.
API. So I think it comes down to personal preference, but also like what your project's preferences are too.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if you are planning in the future to have a mobile app or something, inertia shouldn't be an option. Like inertia allows you to avoid writing APIs. So if you're going to need APIs in the future, then not inertia. It's not going to help you with that. Cool. So now we have our final question. Let's have a look at that one. Any guide on reset password, special to app, Laravel, and Vue app different? How to manage URLs?
Yeah. Guide on reset password, special to app, Laravel and Vue app different. How to manage URLs. I think so. Basically, Laravel gives you, especially within our starter kits, Laravel Breeze
Mhm.
gives you the ability to have a password reset out of the box within Inertia, specifically within Vue. And I think
Mhm.
like that's usually like the we kind of give you the tables already set up, and basically all the server side logic already set up, even the pages set up to do that. As long as you have an
Yeah.
email provider connected, it comes out of the box. But Laravel also just
Yeah.
has so many helpers and functions to be able to do um, that in terms of like, okay, we know most applications are going to have users tables. So the users table is already given to you whether you use a starter kit or not. And then it's as simple as saying, I just want to, reset that password,
Yeah.
or update that particular user. And so I think there's a bunch of different ways to do that in terms of how to manage URLs. Most of the time, those are going to come. Laravel gives specific hashed session URLs where like that only lasts for a specific parameter at a time, and all of that is configurable out of the box too.
Yeah, it is awesome. Like it's effortless. It's
Yeah,
you don't need to do anything. It's just out of the box. Here are the URLs, and if you have an email provider, URL is going to be sent to the user, and that's it. You don't have
Yep.
to even think about how it's being done behind the scenes. Of course,
That's
you can
what
learn about it, but yeah, you can just use it.
Yeah, it's funny
Awesome.
because
So
I get so many
yeah,
questions of like where or people are like, hey, can you make a video of like doing building authentication from scratch within Laravel or like password reset or
yeah,
something like that. And I'm like, I really don't know how to do it. I mean, I could probably learn, but I don't really have
yeah,
to know how to do it, kind of thing.
yeah, yeah. It's crazy. Awesome. So that was the last question. Thank you so much, Josh. It's been great. We have gained a lot of insights and also some inside surprises coming in about starter kits and more interesting things. So thank you so much, Josh.
Well, thank you so much, Mostafa, for having me and Vue Nation. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you both for joining us. We greatly appreciate it.